Hello and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. With me, as always, my good friend, Jim Stam. And I should say, mostly always.
I was just going to say, yeah, I'm feeling a lot better. It's good to get back in the swing of things and talk some baseball. God knows I don't need to hear about Aaron Rodgers or the Steelers quarterback situation anymore, Gary. So we should build some rosters today.
It's like, man, I don't mind Mason being back, but I am not looking forward to those god awful AIs of him as a reindeer coming back. So like, I don't want to see it. I don't.
This is a tough time for baseball fans anyway, because your content is lessening as far as sports goes, and you're very close. We're 2 weeks away from opening day as of today.
This is when those fringe fans are just going, well, what do they look like this year?
Yeah,
right? They haven't been paying attention or crying all off season. They're just showing up now.
They want to know how Rowdy Tellez has looked in spring training.
Right. I love it. So we're going to dive right in because there's a lot of content here.
There is.
What we're going to try to create for you today is an actual 26-man roster. We're going to go all the way. We're even doing the bullpen. We're going to throw up options. I think this is probably a better episode in video than it is audio, but I hope I don't shortchange you on the audio side. We'll definitely talk through them, but I got some graphics just to kind of keep our brains straight while we're talking, and I think it's going to help us really wrap our heads around it. We're going to finish up getting to lineups, brother, because at the end of the day, whatever we construct on this 26-man, I want to put it to the road test. When we start building a lineup, man, we could screw it all up, right? It could change our minds entirely about a decision we made.
Yeah, well, I mean, what it does too is you're sitting here trying to figure out a roster, and then all of a sudden you got to make it work for a lineup, and this lineup is, hard to figure out on its own. Right. So this is a good process tonight. I think we're gonna drill down on and nail some things down, and we'll probably do a lot of what we think they're gonna do, and then also kind of if we disagree with something or see something like maybe this too, I don't know.
Yeah, Dave White chimes in here that this year's roster is tougher to predict this year than the past few years. Yeah, Dave, I agree. And mostly because there are some tighter competitions, and it's not nearly, as you'll see while we go through it, it's not nearly as split up with like guys you have to keep just so you don't lose them types. There's a lot of choice here. Like you really could pick anybody from a certain list. So pretty exciting. We're going to dive right in with the starting pitching, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's much debate here. I mean, I think it's Mitch Keller, Paul Skeens, Jared Jones, Bailey Falter, Andrew Heaney. Mm-hmm. Now, Bailey Falter's got some kind of thing going on where I guess he didn't recover quickly and they kept him out of the start. And I don't know how far that goes. I don't know if that's something we should be worried about. They said it isn't, but
yeah, it was a little vague. He had that little thing go on last year too with his elbow or just above his elbow, one of those deals.
Yeah.
So if something were to pop up there, well then boy, we would have a different conversation to have about the starting pitching. But as it stands right now,
assuming health, this is the
this is as easy as this conversation has been in a while.
A very long time. So just, everybody right there, Mitch Keller, Paul Skeens, Jared Jones, Bailey Falter, Andrew Heaney. That's two lefties in the mix. That's not necessarily the order we think they're going to go, but that's the five. and it also takes up 5 of our 26. I think that's a great place to stop. We're not going to take a break yet. I want to just discuss this a little bit more because Andrew Haney's had a rough start too.
Yes.
He kind of explained that a little bit himself on MOB. He's like, I don't know. This is just how spring is for me. I'm like this every year. And he did get a late start too, so I guess it's even more expected. I'm not concerned because I think he's a very consistent on paper pitcher. And I have seen him do this before.
Yeah, and that's good to hear that he said that about this is kind of this has been his process, like because I wasn't sure about that part, like if he normally looks sharp in spring training, well then maybe I would be slightly concerned. But we've seen lefties do this, Gary, right?
Yeah.
Especially
Bailey Falter
lefties.
last spring. Stunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lefties especially ones that don't throw all that hard and they really need their control and their pitch mix. They need all their pitches working. So I'm not that concerned about it.
Yeah, I'm not either. Bailey Falter, the injury though, let's say it's just something minor that just slows him down enough that he can't really get as stretched out as they want him to in spring.
Mm-hmm.
Do they immediately, this is going to springboard us through the break into talking about the bullpen a little bit because it may be a consideration when we go to pick that. They might need a long man if they've got a guy that's not going to be able to go as long starting the season. Or potentially we could be looking at one of those kids getting called back up like Burroughs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
first name that comes to mind for me is Majinski. I'm thinking like maybe they could, he's been working toward getting stretched out and wanting to be a starter again. Could they give him that? Would that have anything to do with him making the team out of spring training? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, those are
Caleb Perkins, even they were talking about with that a little bit. So maybe the two of them kind of take over the 5th spot together,
Right. And until we get some clarification about Falter, I'm sure they're just being very careful there. But those are the little ripple effects that you would see immediately out the gate.
Yeah, here Matt says Heaney always struggles in spring. Somebody else probably heard his interview too there then. Wonder what Paul Skeens thinks of the additions this offseason. I mean, unless he's a liar, he's very happy about them. I mean, he's saying all the right things, basically. You're probably never going to get the truth out of a guy like that. Of course he wants Juan Soto to be his teammate. And, I'm sure every player is underwhelmed by what their team does for the most part. That's the story of 25 teams. So,
and Skeens especially does just not strike me as a guy as whether he was unhappy or happy about it. It would change one thing for him. Not one thing. Right. You know what I mean? Like he's still going to go and try to be a Terminator in everything that he does. So
let's take that quick break. Let's come back and let's dive into the most unfun part of building a roster, the bullpen.
What could pop?
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Jim, sorry I cut you off so rudely there.
Oh, no,
it's off from our week apart.
Listen, all I was going to say is what can possibly go wrong in a bullpen? That's all.
Right.
I mean,
it was supposed to be great last year. Half of me almost wants it to look like hot garbage going into the season this year so I can talk about how terrible it is and then it can overachieve and surprise me all year. I mean,
I'm sitting here thinking like, as we do this, I'm like, bullpen doesn't give me completely warm and fuzzy feelings, but last year I thought they would be really good. So maybe it doesn't matter.
Okay, so I'm going to name off the relievers that I think are safe bets, okay? I'm only doing 6 that I think are pretty sure things. Despite what you watched today or listened to today, David Bednar,
Oh, buddy.
he's gonna make it. Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because if you read his numbers early in the day today, like I did when I was doing show prep, I was gonna go, it looks like he's poised for a bounce back, and then today happened, and his ERA jumped, I think, almost 10 points. So, it's early spring, and it was a bad outing today. Whoo, boy, was it a bad one. So, David Bednar is still going to make it. Caleb Ferguson's going to make it. He's a lefty. Colin Holderman is going to make it. Tim Meza is going to make it. Dennis Santana and Justin Lawrence. And I think Justin Lawrence makes it because of his pedigree. I really do think they'll like him. So I think he'll probably make it, if nothing else, just to provide an extra arm there. That's my 6. Any disagreements on those?
I had Ferguson and Lawrence flip-flopped there.
But you have them on the team.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just saying about like the 6 I felt really comfortable with. Or that I feel comfortable, or that I feel they feel comfortable with, I should say.
So we're pretty much on the same page for these 6 then.
Yeah, and you're trying to keep an eye on what lefties, right? I mean, how
Yeah.
many you're going to keep and whatnot. But yeah, obviously Bednar today that doesn't give you great feelings. But,
No, it does not make you feel good. And keep in mind, tonight's show is about the opening day roster. We're not talking about who's
Sure.
going to impact the season or all the different options that we know aren't making it or already got cut or could factor in. This is just who we think's going north, right? Or I guess in this case, over to Miami.
Yeah.
Let's play a game called Pick 2, right? Doesn't Pick 2 sound like a fun game to play?
It
Livy
does.
thinks so. Paul, not so much.
Right.
Pick 2. Okay. If those 6 are for sures, then we get to pick 2 more. On that list is Kyle Nicholas, Carmen Majinski, Ryan Barucki, Birch Smith, Hunter Stratton, I think, is going to be injured, and it's not going to matter. I don't think he's quite ready. Tanner Rainey, Johan Ramirez, Carson Fulmer. We should probably recall that some of these guys could have opt-outs. I'm not sure how many of them would. Carson Fulmer might, Carmen Majinski and Kyle Nicholas have options. They could go anywhere, do anything. Joey Wentz and Peter Strzelecki, you'd be losing.
Right.
So who would you pick out of these 2, Jim?
Well, I mean, Nicholas is somebody right away that obviously I think, who knows how big his role could be.
He's kind of struggled with control this year. I mean, he hasn't given up any runs, but he is walking like guys left and right.
Yeah.
That does burn you eventually. I wonder if there's any concern about that. I have some.
Well, there's a little bit of history there with that too. So,
Yeah.
You do worry about it. I think he's going to get every opportunity to dial that in on the roster. I think to me, like the 2 biggest interesting guys here, Majinski and Barucki, is where I see, like, wonder what they're going to do and how many lefties they want to keep.
I think Barucki's looked really good. I really do.
Yeah.
I hate to think that you start him in the minors just because he signed a minors deal. If he's ready, he's ready, right? I think Ryan Barucki has a chance to make this. In fact, I think I probably would want him to be one of my 2, especially if I have to consider using Caleb Ferguson as long relief.
Yeah. Is there any chance they keep more than 2 lefties?
Yeah. I don't see why.
I think they could.
I mean, because you figure Joey Wentz, they're going to lose, period. We haven't even considered him.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Ryan Barucki and Joey Wentz there, Hey, I think Barucki's better. If that's really what it's about, is just getting the best bullpen. Hey, I want Ryan Barucki, and he didn't have any trouble facing righties.
No, I really liked when they signed him, because I just thought like, man, if he is healthy and can even look close to he did in
Yeah.
2023, so I would lean Barucki. I don't know who you do that at the expense of. Does Majinski get more time in AAA just to chase that starter role? I mean,
He certainly could. I mean, Tanner Rainey has been interesting. I mean, he's got a nice
yeah,
pitch. He's got some experience. My point is, like, if you're trying to keep depth in your bullpen, I'm trying to build excuses. Carmen Majinski's stretching out to be a starter. Kyle Nicholas is struggling with control. Even though he's got great numbers and great stuff, he's really struggling to pinpoint that strike zone. I'm trying to think of reasons you might want them to work on something so that you don't lose a Tanner Rainey for nothing. If you think you can get something out of him. And Ryan Barucki, if you think he's won out a spot, well, let him take it. You're going to lose Joey Wentz then. DFA him to make the spot.
right.
I think I would go with Barucki and Majinski if I had to pick.
Yeah, and Nicholas.
Majinski's got more experience than Nicholas. It would be almost weird to send him back unless you really are committed to trying to make him a starter. To me, but it's definitely a decision, man. Like I'm trying to think of like who I dismissed from that list altogether. Strzelecki, I can't think of any way he makes the team.
No,
And he's on the 30 man, so there's a spot.
I have Strzelecki and Wentz kind of in that same category. I'm not seeing it.
The only thing was Wentz was pretty good last year for the Pirates after they picked him up. And I do think that they like his stuff from the left side. If it's comparable between him and Barucki, again, thinking of depth, selfishly, thinking of depth, is there a possibility that you'd want to leave him in AAA, providing he's not one of the guys that has opt-outs? That's actually, I think, Matt brought up here. I'm told Barucki has an opt-out. Oh, Barucki goes for sure then, right?
That's a big, if that's accurate, and I'm assuming Matt is being accurate there, then yeah, that's a big factor.
Yeah. So I would have to say Barucki takes our 7th spot for sure then. We don't want to lose him. I like what I've seen. I certainly like it better than Joey Wentz and playing games there.
Well, yeah, I think like, great, Wentz looked decent at the end of last year, but if Barucki looks like he's got anything left in the tank, I don't want to mess around there.
Yeah, and I haven't really seen Tim Meza pitch much. So I don't know. For all I know, he could start on the IL and we just don't know what's going on, or maybe I've just missed him pitching, but I haven't really seen him pitch very much.
Yeah, I want to say maybe I saw him like once on a broadcast so far.
Yeah,
so.
That's the other thing. You never can tell. And Tom Zek didn't mention them, so probably nothing official, but they could be working on something on the side fields, and maybe they don't think he's worth it. And they signed him to a real cheap contract too. It's not like they couldn't get out of it or try to pass him through waivers and see if anyone wants to pay him over $1 million to claim him.
No, that's true. Looking at this too, like when you look at this, the kind of the high leverage innings here, are we going to see what on paper looks good? Are we going to see Bednar be the closer?
I think we're going to see Bednar start out as the closer at least. But I don't think they're going to have nearly as long a leash as they did last year. Dennis Santana's got to be in consideration. I mean, he's been lights out. Colin Holderman's been real good this spring. He started out last year looking like their best bullpen pitcher, before he kind of wore himself down.
Right. It's just interesting. Like, I think Santana would be the first option.
Yeah. Yeah.
it- you know, I don't think you want to put Nicholas in that kind of spot for just the things we were mentioning.
Yeah, I don't
If
think you
ma-
could.
if
They did use Baraki like in the 7th and 8th a lot back when he was really humming. So you could see that. And Lawrence has experience there. You know, I mean, he's closed and he's worked setup before. Weird
and
delivery from the right side.
he's another one that I haven't got my eyeballs on to just see what's going on there. So, I mean, I know they like him, but I'm just curious as to how it's looked.
All right, so we're gonna go with Baraki, and then we got to roll the dice. Is it Nicholas or Majinski? We split on that one.
I think it'll be Nicholas.
Okay.
I think so.
All right, Nicholas and Baraki finish out our bullpen. So that brings us to lucky 13. We're down to our 13. We're down to the 13 people that are going to supposedly carry bats and deliver damage against other people's pitchers. Let's see if this works out.
In theory, yes.
Yeah. So I'm going through for sures.
Hmm.
I have 9 of them. I want to see if you can agree with me. Okay.
Okay.
Here are the sure hitters. Tommy Pham, Brian Reynolds, O'Neill Cruz, Andrew McCutchen, Joey Bart, Nick Gonzalez, Ke'Bryan Hayes, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, and Jared Triolo, if only because Hayes is already injured. Here's that list of sure hitters. Do you disagree with any of those?
No, it's who I had in my top 9. I also think the Horwitz situation at first base benefits Triolo right off the bat too.
Yeah, it could. And I think that should be a consideration when we start picking the bench. And we're not only picking the bench here, we're really picking our first baseman when we get into our bench section. And the reason that I've left it there is because it's unsure, not because it's traditional bench. Okay. So that's why I think when we start doing the lineup, it's going to get really interesting, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
So we're in agreement there on those 9 players. That means we get to select 4 more. And remember, we need a first baseman and a catcher out of that. We have to have a backup catcher. We have to have a first baseman. So let's go to the bench. I left that list up top there of who we've already picked, Jim. We get to pick 4 here. We need a first baseman. We need a catcher. Let's not forget that. The first section are 3 guys who can play first base. I did mention Jack down there earlier, but there's no way they trust him enough to be a starting first baseman out the gate. I'll be surprised if we even see it in a game. DJ Stewart has certainly got the lion's share of play there this spring, I would say. Certainly given him the longest look. Billy Cook has taken some reps over there and looked pretty good. It would kind of leave you without a left-handed option at first base if you went that route. Nick York can play some first base, among other things. DJ Stewart, to me, is probably the one making this team. And a lot of it has to do with the Horwitz injury because it's short-term. And when he comes back, it makes DJ Stewart the easy cut. Plus, he can play some outfield.
Yeah, I think the more you stare at this, DJ Stewart, and by the way, good for him. Like you show up, nothing's guaranteed. He's hit the ball. I think they've given him the most at bats this year out of any Pirate in spring training. So they're clearly giving him as long of a look as they can.
Yeah, you definitely see the problems there. I mean, like, this isn't a major
Sure.
league starter, but
Sure.
I do think like he's a band-aid here. And I think that's probably the route they're going to go. Doesn't mean that
And a
he winds
lefty.
up starting all the time, but yeah, he's
Sure.
a lefty.
Lefty that might, run into a few. And the more you do the lineup, you start you start realizing how unbalanced it can be. So at least at first, I think he will make this ball club. I don't know how long it will last. I think that will be totally dependent on how he does and how long Horowitz is out for.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay, so catcher.
Mm-hmm.
And we can circle back and take another look at Billy Cook or Nick York when we get into lower in the list here. I just grouped them in with the first baseman because we had to pick somebody they've been actually playing there. A catcher, Jason DeLay. A lot of people think this is the route they'll go. The booth certainly does. Greg Brown says it, I think, just about every time Jason DeLay plays, that he assumes he'll be the backup. I think personally they're setting it up so that Henry triumphantly defeats someone to win it. But this is probably where the Pirates and I split the most. I don't think this is particularly close. Henry Davis has really, really played his way onto the team. I think his bat has showed some things. His defense has taken a big step forward. I've really loved it. I think he's going to play a lot. And I think Joey Bart can't play a whole lot. But I think you're probably going to see a split there where there's room to have one of those kids. So that's what I would do.
Yeah, the more I look at this situation, like I'll be really surprised if it's not Henry. For a lot of different reasons. I mean, one, he's looked better. I think they want to reward that. I think confidence-wise, it's good for him. I don't know that there's what do we got here? Miles says Stewart can't really be worse than early season Rowdy, can he? No, Miles, no one could be worse than that.
I figured I'd put it up before before we got too far away from us deciding DJ Stewart made the team. Okay.
Yeah, and back to Henry though, like there's nothing more in AAA for Henry.
Right.
Like he has to start getting his footing. And it's just time. It's not going to do him any good to go back down. Okay, he's not the starter and he's not going to get as many as at bats, or it's just time, dude. Like you got to start getting some traction. And this would be the time to do it. I don't think it does him a damn bit of good to go back down. And honestly, he has some power. So like, again, I'm trying to find that any way I can on this roster when he does play.
Right. And I think if Bart ends up hitting so well that you can't afford to live without his bat, you got to put him at DH. Hey, so what? Go ahead and do it. Like Kutch knows the deal this year, right? And maybe it's Bart's hitting so good you can't do anything but play him, and Henry just rots for a week here and there. Maybe it's vice versa.
Yeah.
Maybe Henry takes off and Bart is slumping. Like it could be a really nice mix. So I just think it's time to start introducing one of them, because the longer they keep kicking this can down the road with the kids, the more it really seems like you're not actually going to develop any of them.
Yeah.
You gotta take that next step. And it wasn't their fault what happened with Endy and everything, but you got to do something.
Right. And speaking of Endy specifically, since you mentioned him, like I think it's the perfect time to let him go down and just totally get in a routine, a rhythm. He's going to get all those consistent at bats. He's still going to be able to work defensively on what he wants to do. And you know what? If he's hitting, they'll figure something out. They will.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he's got outfield experience, first base experience. He could catch still. there's injuries that could happen. Joey Bart's just about to start getting paid. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of things to start thinking about here. Jason DeLay still has an option. He could go back to AAA. Carter Binns just retired, so it's not like they had somebody else ready to take over AAA. And there's a lot of pitchers that they want to bring along. It'd be good to have a catcher like DeLay.
Right, and if Henry falls flat on his face and can't hit again, well, you've got options then, right?
Yep.
And he's sitting there, DeLay's there in a pinch. So
we've talked ourselves into DJ Stewart and Henry Davis making the team. We need 2 more. We definitely need a backup outfielder for sure. So I've got that grouped into Jack Sawinski, Ji-Hwan Bae, Adam Frazier, and Joshua Palacios. I've kind of got some long shots on here of Nick Solak, Bryce Johnson, and Matt Gorski. I don't think any of those 3 are going to make this team, right? Do you? Solak's had a good spring. Solak has had a good spring, but I don't know.
No, I don't. I don't think that any of those guys are really going to be in serious consideration. I think, the big discussion here is, and nor is Palacios, in my opinion.
I would agree with you on Palacios. I think it's time to cut the ripcord there. He's got 0 options, so he's gone if he'll get picked up.
Yeah.
He's hit enough home runs in the league, somebody will try, right?
Sure. But, then you get down to the Bays and the Sawinskis of the world, both who have had really good springs.
And Adam Frazier, is he a lock for you? Because I refrained from putting him in the lock because they're not paying him an awful lot. They're certainly talking about him like he's some kind of an essential cog to this whole thing. So Adam Frazier probably makes it, right?
If you're going to catch this episode on audio only, you won't see the eye roll that I just gave as soon as Frazier's name was mentioned. I think he's going to make the roster. I don't understand it. I don't even understand why he was brought in to be put in the mix anyway.
But we agree he's going to make it. That, my friend, is 12.
Yeah.
So we have 1 more spot for Jack Sawinski or Ji-Hwan Bae is really what it comes down to. They've both played well. They both give you completely different elements. Jack, the home run ball, Bae, the speed and athleticism. I don't know what to say, man. They're both doing things this spring that you would ask guys who struggled mightily to do. So you can say that that neither of them should get another chance. I think that's probably crazy, especially on a team that needs home runs so badly.
Yeah.
Jim, I'm going with Jack Sawinski. I think that's the guy I would pick.
That's who I'm picking. Just simply for the fact of, they're going to need some power. They really could use it from the left side of the plate. As good as Bae has looked, it's never really translated at all to the majors. Whereas Jack has had a little bit of a track record. So for me, I think it's Jack. But that's why I don't want Frazier on this team, because I would give Bae and Jack an opportunity if I could.
I mean, would you really consider Bae a guy that could play second base? I mean, here's my thing. I'm not rolling out that I wouldn't prefer Billy Cook or Nick York over Bae,
Right. That's true.
I have a pretty hard time making that cut, man. Like Billy Cook, here's my thing. Center field is naked. Like you have to have somebody that can back up center field. So here's my argument for Billy Cook. He can play center field. He's right-handed. So if you wanted to give Cruz a seat against a really tough lefty, you'd want to have a right-hander that can play that, right? So there's your excuse for Billy Cook. Bay is another guy who can play center field, but he's left-handed, so that doesn't really help, right? I mean, it feels to me like we're doing this DJ Stewart spot because I feel like we're handcuffed into it. You got to have a lefty, and you have to have a first baseman. We're doing the backup catcher because obviously you have to have one. Henry Davis is going to be that, I think. The outfield, we've cast aside just about everybody. And I come down to those 5, and I have a real hard argument, man. Like, I can make a case for real that Adam Frazier should just not make this team.
Yeah, I mean, if we could just pretend Adam Frazier doesn't exist, and that in 3 weeks into the season, Horwitz is on this team, then I think it starts making these decisions a lot easier.
Yeah. Because I would love, I don't see us making it through this season without guys like Nick York and Billy Cook playing.
Those two, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's funny to be this far into it, and I mean, we've barely mentioned Nick York, and I think we both like him as a player.
They're clearly giving him less chances though than Billy Cook's getting. And Billy Cook, the thing is, like, as good as he's looked, right? He's 26 years old. Like,
right.
You're only going to get so excited. He still does K a little bit too much. You know, even when he does deliver some power, and the defense is great. I mean, I really think he looks good in the outfield. Got a hell of an arm. I'm happy to play him out there. I'd prefer him over, you know, I think I would prefer him over Ji-Hwan Bae, I would say. I'd rather give him a shot than Ji-Hwan Bae. But I don't think I have room for Ji-Hwan Bae anyway, because I have to take DJ Stewart. I have to take Henry Davis. I think I have to take Jack Sawinski. And I know I have to take Adam Frazier. And that's my bank.
Yeah, and you're okay with if Cook were to make the roster, I think you're okay with letting Cook not get at bats, but I don't want Nick York just sitting on a roster, not getting much playing time. Like, he's still 22 years old, I think. He needs to be down there, and he needs to be playing in AAA. So sometimes it's who do you care less about, right? So Bay's just somebody that how many times are you going to start thinking maybe there's something there? How many opportunities do you give that guy?
Yeah. It's a difficult choice. Like, I see, like,
I think Jack's making this roster. I'm
Josh is down here,
100%.
but Cook is the best outfielder on the team. Maybe. But, like, I just, instead of just complaining, like, you know, how you got like fam-itis. I've seen the jokes in here that he's got the fam-itis still. Thinks we could just cut him. They're not going to do that. I mean, like, they signed the guy. I mean, this is like, those are complaints that I think just waste time. They're not going to cut him right away.
Yeah,
Frazier, they barely paid anything, so that's why I put him in the maybe list.
Right.
Bam, they're going forward with. They think that's a good idea. I mean, whether you agree or not, they do.
They signed him to be they signed Tommy Pham to be the left fielder. I mean, like we're past Tommy Pham. We're past, if you don't like Tommy Pham, get past it, because he's going to be on the roster, and he's going to be in left field.
All right, final answer: DJ Stewart, Henry Davis, Jack Sawinski, Adam Frazier. So that's our list.
Yeah, I'm not happy about that, Gary. But I think I think the Horowitz thing really kind of messes with this equation right out the gate.
It does, but it's only one player that it
Mhm.
caused. I think most of what we fought about, we would have fought about anyway. You get what I'm saying? Like we would have
Mhm.
argued about that regardless because that wasn't going to change one way or another. I'm just so confused by some of the things that they haven't done yet. And if there's one more move hanging out there, Jim, the thing is, I'm looking around right now. I'm not sure it's necessarily a move as much as like make room for guys that I think I like better. Like I think I would be happier like with Nick Gonzalez playing shortstop every day and Nick York playing second base every day with Jared Triolo backing them all up and get rid of IKF. You know, I'd even feel better about having Frazier around if that's the route you went. You know, I
Yes,
just
Gary,
don't
but
understand what we're doing with both of those players because when we build this lineup out, I don't know how I'm gonna not make a featherweight half.
at least initially, for sure. Um, if you only had access to the Pirates' internal metrics on IKF, you would feel so much better about this, I'm sure. Simply
You think so?
because they no, you wouldn't. But that's what they're saying. I don't know what they could be looking at that isn't already well known about IKF.
Yeah, it's gonna be such a weird thing to watch. So what we're gonna do is torture ourselves. We're gonna take another break. We're gonna come back and we're gonna try to do a lineup out of this mess we just created, Jim.
Hey, we picked the roster. We might as well make a lineup.
Absolutely.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum Misery Tour as we try to work our way through the roster and see if we can't make sense of a lineup. We should probably consider left and right, I suppose. Maybe we should just think of it more as who we would consider the traditional starters if we were a normal team that didn't try to play matchups every day.
Yes, and we will still see that. Hate to break it to everybody.
I know. All right, so we didn't keep G1 Bay, so there's no obvious leadoff hitter.
Mhm.
Who's going to lead off for us, and what position, pray tell, Jim, will they play?
Well, I see really one thing that they're going to do. I have a slight suggestion that maybe could help lengthen the lineup a little to help. I think it's going to be Kutch. At least to start the year, I think that's where it's going. I think it'll be Kutch, and yeah, he'll be the leadoff hitter.
Okay, and obviously the DH.
Yes.
All right, should we even debate number 2, or do we just know that it's Brian Reynolds?
Well, it's the first name I wrote when I put down 1 through 9. So I mean,
it's definitely going to be Brian Reynolds, right?
Yeah.
Switch hitter Brian Reynolds right there at number 2.
Yep.
Might as well do the same thing we always do, right? It's worked so well in the past. So next up, to me, this is a no-brainer. O'Neal Cruz.
Yes.
And he is, of course, the center fielder.
Yes.
Number 4.
Mm-hmm.
Joey Bart is who they've been using this spring. Do you want to continue with that thought process? Do you think that's who you would put in the 4 hole?
I think they're going to do Bart. I do. I have him as the cleanup hitter. I would keep things rolling with him. I felt better and better about Bart as this has gone on. I think he's really found something at the plate. He's my cleanup hitter.
Okay. This is a great point, Bill, and we'll get back to this. I like this thought. Let's see. Now we have the number 5 spot.
Hmm.
We have gone righty, switch hitter, lefty, righty. I would put a lefty here, but I don't know if we have any more. Unless I decide
Yeah.
to start Adam Frazier or Jack Sawinski or DJ Stewart. Do you just stick DJ Stewart in the 5 hole and call it a day?
Oh God, Gary, it's opening day. I don't do this to me on
Children
on
are
opening-
watching.
Yes, on opening day. I did not do that. I have Nick Gonzalez there.
You have Nick Gonzalez.
I do. I just, with him, with how good he's been with runners in scoring position, I want to give him more chops at that. So
Yeah, I got no problem with it actually, man. That makes a lot of sense to me. Let's see, number 6. Boy, it starts to really get hard.
yeah, that's
I'm gonna right here say DJ Stewart.
okay. Just and I'm assuming because of the
It's been a couple players
lefty.
since we've had a lefty, and I don't know where he fits, so that's a 6 or 7 hitter to me. And I have had fever dreams all off season of Ke'Bryan Hayes being my 7 hitter.
That's where I have that's where I do actually have Hayes right now.
That's where I have him too. That's where I wanted him. So now you got 8. And let's see what we need left. Shortstop. So that's Isaiah Kiner for Leffa.
Mhm.
We have another outfield spot. So that would be Jack Sawinski or Tommy Pham.
Well, I have Pham just simply because I think that's where unless there's something pitching matchup wise, I have Pham.
And then we're going IKF in the 9 hole as the shortstop. So Andrew McCutchen, Brian Reynolds, O'Neill Cruz, Joey Bart, Nick Gonzalez, DJ Stewart, Ke'Bryan Hayes, Tommy Pham, IKF.
Now, yeah. Now, I started this off by saying something about maybe an idea to try to stretch that lineup just a little bit.
Sure.
Is there any scenario where you start IKF at leadoff and allow Kutch to be down in the lineup a little bit to help try to lengthen that? I know it doesn't do anything for the lefty righty thing.
Well,
but-
they did it a little bit last year. He did a lot of that.
Right.
I had another thought with the same thing with Ke'Bryan Hayes. I figure Ke'Bryan Hayes is going to be a singles type hitter. If he's really settling in, a singles and doubles guy, and he should be able to steal some bases if he's supposedly healthy. That's where I'd play him. I don't think you're going to baby him out of this back problem. So it doesn't matter to me that it would be a few more at bats or anything.
No, his walks though are so. I mean, he just doesn't walk at all. I don't want to baby him either, but I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I want to roll an egg down the hill right away on in the first month of the season. I would let Hayes be at the back end of the lineup. I would. That's just me.
The only funny thing here is like this isn't a great looking lineup, and the only real thing that's different because of injury is DJ Stewart. So instead of an untested rookie, we have a sputter start aging out prospect, right?
Yeah.
It's not great, man. And
Well,
even when Horwitz comes back, you got to hope like that works. If not, they're going to have to start calling on some of those guys that you and I looked at as tough cuts already, like pretty quick.
It's why guys like, it's why guys like Horwitz are so important because if you can add a lefty somewhere in there that can at least give you something, and then Jack, if he can come in and at least do damage when he needs to against certain pitchers, it helps. Because when you start looking at this, you really start thinking to yourself, yeah, they're going to struggle offensively. They are.
and
There's not a lot of home runs here.
like Bill wrote, injuries are inevitable. That's always an opportunity for some of the bubble guys that end up in AAA. Absolutely. I just think some of these bubble guys are a little more ready than than bubble guys tend to be here. There's a big part of me that thinks this is a better team if Billy Cook and Nick York are on this team instead of Tommy Pham and Adam Frazier. That's a problem for me because those are guys you signed, and I think you may have already had better solutions here. That to me is something that just doesn't make a lot of sense. When you start getting to the point where you have a lot of guys like that that are going to get scrubbed out, you're gonna push them off. You don't want to be pushing them off for guys that you're pretty sure are going to fail. Like Adam Frazier swung a really light bat when he swung it really well. At best, he was a Luis Ariz type. Like when he had his best season here.
Yeah, right.
So that's the best he was ever going to be. That's not coming back. He'll take a professional at bat for you. He'll take a walk. He can play the positions. Capable backup type guy. I just don't like what I've had to lose in order to have him on the team.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Cook, and he's 26. If he's going to make a team anyway, it's probably going to be in the fashion that we're talking about, right? If he's ever going to make it in the majors, which is positional versatility, can give you a little bit of pop with the bat. He's added first base to his.
Plays hard every play.
Yeah. Plays hard. Like this is how he's going to have to find a spot on a roster.
Yeah,
I would be totally fine with letting him do that or try to do it. Nick York, I want to put him in some bubble wrap and I want to let him play and I want him to be totally ready when he comes up. So, but yeah, that's when you get into the Adam Fraziers. You're like, well, Billy Cook can't do. I know Frazier plays a little bit more infield spots.
Well, Ji-Hwan Bae could do it. Yeah. I mean, if that's the way you want to look at it, like Nick Solak could do it. Like, I mean, like there was an NRI that cost like a couple cents less. All I'm saying is like, I just don't think I'm going to get anything out of Adam Frazier. I don't want to see us hold on too long because he's an old friend. If I really think these kids are going to pass them by, and I do, I think they're going to have a very hard time holding back Andy Rodriguez. If Ji-Hwan Bae keeps hitting like he has been in spring, like in AAA, they'll have a hard time not wanting to give him another run. Right.
Yeah.
And
I guess I would rather just tear the scab off now that shouldn't even be there in the first place and remove Frazier from the equation.
It just doesn't feel like they're going to do it, man. They talked so much about how impactful he is in the room and everything. They even went so far as to say like Royals players were like upset that he wasn't around anymore. It's like,
okay. if that,
I mean, I'm sure he's a great guy. It's not like I'm laughing because I think he's an asshole or anything. I'm just saying, like, come on. Like, at this point, it's about contributions on the field, right? Like, for real. Like, if you're going to nose a kid aside, give me a real reason you're doing it. That's all I'm saying. Joey Bart is a great example of this. You brought him in. Yeah, great. You brought him in as a waiver. He was an emergency, and it's worked out. But Joey Bart gives you a reason why I'm not going to bitch that Endy and Henry aren't named the starters and brought up here. And I'm not going to bitch about you holding kids back because you gave me something better right now. You gave me something that doesn't make me want to see it. You signed Tommy Pham. I'm sorry. Every time Jack Swinski hits a home run, I'm going to complain that he's not starting. You know
Sure.
what I mean? Like,
Sure.
I don't want those guys held back for old turds that only have a ceiling of used to be.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. I do think, like, again, the Pirates, their win-loss record is going to be so dependent on every month of the season. And if you're letting games get away from you early by some of the decisions you're making by being too overly cautious, I would rather go down swinging with a little bit more of somebody that's young and has some upside than some of the guys we're talking about, especially one.
Man, I think what we probably need to do here is plan a good old fashioned over under show here, where we just sit there and kind of talk about numbers from last year and basically do over or under. Did they add power this offseason at all? Did they add more power arms in the bullpen? Did they what's going to be better or worse this year besides that starting rotation that I think all of the hopes are very clearly getting pinned on at this point?
I think they'll get on base a little bit more. Like just looking for something. I think they'll get on base a little bit more. I cannot see this lineup not being second to last or last in home runs.
I agree entirely on the home runs aspect. I think like even our top 5 can hit a little bit, like Kutch, Reynolds, Cruz, Bart, Gonzalez. I think they can hit a little bit. I think if you're just looking for singles, Hayes can kick the ball down, around. He can get that done on occasion. And if not him, you at least have to kind of look at Triolo and think his bat's at least similar to what you're getting out of Hayes, right? So we'll see. I think that's probably a more even match than we care to mention right now, as far as like who should really be the starter on this team. Tommy Pham, he's going to run into him every once in a while. So is DJ Stewart. IKF isn't going to hit any. So you're looking at a team that has to continually get their walks, make sure they're moving guys along, hitting the ball to the right place. They do have more of those guys than they've had in the past. But you're right, man. And the thing that I hate about putting Kutch at leadoff is, again, 20 home runs last year. They don't have home runs on this team. I want that kind of in the heart of my lineup. So I'm inclined to like lean back to what you originally said. Maybe IKF's the way to go. And then you know what else I thought?
No.
I remember he used to use Frazier there.
Oh my God.
And I could totally see it on days when he starts. And if you ask me, you make him the starter and have to bench Nick Gonzalez to do it, you have infinitely taken a bad lineup and made it even worse. They've got to have another bat come in here somehow, some way. Doesn't it feel that way?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's I keep going back to Horwitz and like, my God, he shouldn't matter this much, but he kind of does, just in the fact that he's lefty and can hit a little bit, help lengthen the lineup. That's why I would be willing to put IKF at the leadoff spot for now. If you put IKF at the leadoff spot and then you put Kutch down further and you add Horwitz, all of a sudden I still don't feel great, but at least you might be able to keep an inning going, and roll it over. And I just don't see how that's going to happen with what we have to work with right now.
Got to get some of these kids graduated to the majors this year. That's what's got to happen, because they certainly aren't capable of either picking it out or buying what they actually need, right? So
Sure. And
Ye-
we got, I just want to say, comment from DJ or HHI says about Horowitz being the leadoff guy. He's slower than Colin Moran. So I just do not see that as being a possibility.
truth, he does get on base, and this is a team that's used Vogel back there. So
This is true. This is true.
anything can happen. I think I like your IKF on the surface, although again, I really would prefer Gonzalez at short and York at second. I think that's just the way to go. And I think if you really, really want to try to win this year, you cut Adam Frazier, you make IKF the utility guy, along with Triolo,
Mhm.
and you start York and Gonzalez. I think that gets two of your better bats in the lineup most days. And then you take a run at it. Let the kid try to learn. And if York doesn't, hey, bring up the next one. I think it's got to start. It's got to start happening, because they're not bringing it in on their own.
No, and here's the other thing about this equation is we just sat here and talked about a bullpen, right? Like, great, you've got some starting pitching. These games are close. You're not scoring runs. Is the bullpen ready to make sure you win those close games? So it's it starts, there's a domino effect there too.
I think there's room to probably pick up another bullpen arm that kind of shimmies loose as the spring continues on. And I don't mean like somebody that just gets cut because they stink. I mean somebody that gets squeezed out because they really just don't have room. I think you could probably find another player, or go sign Kimbrel. He's good every other year. He certainly wasn't good last year. Maybe he'll be great this year. You could probably get him for like $3 million and throw him in every once in a while. I mean, that's a guy that if he's right, he kind of eases your mind about Bednar, or
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, throw more fire at it, like, don't be afraid to lose $4 million. Like, I think that's the type of thing that they could probably invest in right now. And a hitter, like, listen, I don't know what happened with the whole Verdugo thing. I'm not even 100% sure Verdugo is that much of an upgrade over Jack. But I mean, it's a bat that's been in the Yankees lineup for a couple years, and they haven't been able to eclipse it, to the point where he kept playing. So maybe go do it. And if you got that trade that's really out there, do it. I just don't know what it is that comes in here and makes this lineup a whole hell of a lot better. I think it's more than one player away.
Yeah, for sure. I think ideally what you want to see is maybe Endy and Nick York get off the really hot starts down there. And you can inject those kinds of players into the lineup, and that Henry finally decides that he has the ability to hit major league pitching. Those are the places I'm looking at. And of course, Jack, so those are really, it's really kind of where it's at right now. So I think you're
Rubber hit the road. Couple promising players get sent down to AAA.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens come May, right?
A lot of low scoring games, and you better hope you can win them with the bullpen.
Sounds really depressing and sad. But hey, listen, I think that's a lot of content. We went through it all. I hope that it was digestible. Again, if you're listening to this and it was really confusing, maybe watch it on video. I mean, like, at this point, I understand why you wouldn't, but I think we made sense of it.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where until you put some pen to paper with this stuff, it's hard to sort it all out. So
yeah. Well, let's toss it off to Ben. That was a good conversation. And without further ado, Ben.
Let's go, Bucks!
Yeah, buddy.